Good morning, everyone. Welcome back for the fifth day of this FDP program. And I think the last 4 days we had discussed many topics. And today's discussion, it is going to be on modeling and simulation of electric vehicles. So basically, in this particular session, we are going to look at different ways that the system has been modeled, using some different platforms, right? So before going to the session, I would first like to give a brief about this particular domain. In the electric vehicle field, the job market, when you look at the job market, so there is definitely a good amount of jobs available in this particular domain, especially in the model based development side. So either as a plant model development, or using the HIL, SIL setups, for with MATLAB or similar kind of environment. So there are multiple ways these model-based systems are being applied. And today, since all the companies are, the companies are very competitive, right? So each and every company is developing their product in a lightning speed right now. So all the companies have to be very competitive, and definitely this particular this model based development course helps most of the companies to save a lot of their development time. So that is where it has been very advantageous for most of the companies. So today most of the automotive manufacturers, startup companies, they all use this model based simulation softwares, right? So if you take me, I have worked prior in MATLAB Simulink, as well as in Scilab, and prior to that we also worked in Ricardo as well. So Ricardo is one of the model-based simulation software used for both electric vehicle as well as conventional petrol diesel vehicle modeling as well, right? So when we look at this modeling and simulation, so there are like different approach. One is component level modeling, component level modeling, component level testing, validation, and we also have vehicle level modeling and vehicle level testing and validation. So those are all different areas we have opportunities. So when you look at charger manufacturer, yes, they are trying to model a charger and for a particular application, and they are trying to use the similar model for multiple size of chargers, and they are actually just making minor changes on the specifications of the model, so model parameters, and just they are implementing the same model. So today this is definitely saving the companies a lot of time for either the battery manufacturer or a complete vehicle manufacturer, right? So let me just open an example. Today's discussion, we are going to look at a few different approaches, how the EV models have been done, and different approaches we can see, and let's understand how they have implemented this thing. Before going to the model directly, I want to just showcase the background, the background behind that model, and then we can go into that. See, we call it as powertrain sizing. So basically, I have a program called propulsion unit sizing methodology. So basically, this is not in our FDP program, but basically what we have to do is there are, like, in this model-based development scenario, we have role played by electrical electronics engineer as well as mechanical automotive engineers, because it is a combination of all the systems, as I mentioned. So if you look at the model development of a pure electric vehicle, before going into the electrical subsystems like the battery, motor, or the motor controller, or the battery controller, all the systems, we need to even develop the vehicle level functions, the vehicle dynamic backgrounds. That is the base where the model gets started, right? So we need to consider the total weight of the vehicle, dimensions of the vehicle, like the front, the overall wheelbase, and then the center of gravity, height, right? So many other functions, gradability, all these factors, the gradient angle, all these factors we need to consider before ever starting a vehicle model development, right? And in this case, we need to calculate certain factors, like, for example, rolling resistance force, which is nothing but depends upon the normal weight of the vehicle multiplied by the rolling resistance coefficient multiplied by the cos of the road angle. So that is a rolling resistance value. And we need to know what is the tire that we are going to use for this particular application, what is the tire specification, and from the tire specification we need to calculate what is the rolling radius of the wheel, particular wheel, right? So we need to know what is the rolling resistance coefficient, aerodynamic resistance. So we need to calculate that. So to calculate aerodynamic resistance, we need to know what is the air density, what is the frontal area of the vehicle, what is the drag coefficient of the particular model of the vehicle we are going to use or we are going to model, and what is the vehicle speed, right? That the vehicle speed that we are going to run at. So the wind speed, all these values, they actually what is say these values actually are these are the influential factors basically on the aerodynamic resistance. Similarly, aerodynamic drag coefficient is there, similar to rolling resistance coefficient. We need to, depending upon the design of our vehicle, either it is a two-wheeler or a passenger car, we need to select the aerodynamic drag coefficient, right? And similarly, the gradient resistance as well. So we need to calculate the gradient resistance using the mg, mass of the vehicle, multiplied by acceleration due to gravity and sine of the gradient angle. So we calculate the gradient resistance. So once we calculate all this resistance, if we know in addition to all this rolling resistance, aerodynamic resistance and gradient resistance, in case if we know all the inertia value of each and every component, right, then we can also include the inertial resistance also here, right? Otherwise we can consider it as negligible and we can add the three resistances, and finally the total resistance will be calculated. Once the total resistance RR plus AR plus GR, rolling resistance, aerodynamic resistance and gradient resistance, once it is calculated, we have to use that value, use the total resistance value, which is what the unit of this will be Newton, right? Because all these forces will be in Newton, so the total resistance will be in Newton. So once we know the Newton value and once we know the rolling diameter, the rolling radius of the wheel, right, which is nothing but for example, if the rolling radius of the wheel is this much, so the total diameter, the rim diameter is 16 inches for example, and we need to calculate what is the total diameter of the wheel including the tire and calculate the rolling radius, right? It can be something like 0.2 meter, 0.3 meter, like that, right, in that range for a car. So once we calculate that, we can calculate what is the required torque for moving the vehicle, right? So once we know the required torque, to move the vehicle, then we have to calculate, we have to develop the torque from the motor, right? That is the requirement. So first, actually using this formula, using the rolling resistance, aerodynamic resistance, gradient resistance, all these resistance, these are nothing but which is actually opposing our vehicle. These are the forces which are opposing our vehicle. So basically, we need to generate a force, generate a torque that is going to overcome these forces. That is the requirement. So now how we are going to decide how we are going to develop that torque, that maximum torque. So that is basically depend upon three parameters. One is the power plant torque. So what is the power plant in an electric vehicle? Which is the component called power plant in an electric vehicle, pure electric vehicle?
Electric motor.
Yes, ma'am. So it is the electric motor which is the power plant. So it is developing a torque, so we call it as a power plant torque, TP. And then the transmission efficiency, which is more than 85% most of the time, depending upon your model, we can develop it. So 85%, 0.85, and gear ratio and final drive ratio. So if you remember, my picture, which I have shown on the initial day in my slide, let me just open that. So if you remember that, then I think picture, I'm not having the picture, but okay, no issues. Exact picture is missing. So for example, if we have a motor, if we have a motor here, actually, so if this is the gear, basically we call it as, if we have a reduction, this is one reduction gear, you can say. So here one motor, you can see this is actually meshed with here. See, this gear is meshed with this gear, and this gear is actually meshed with this gear, right? So this is called as the gear ratio, and this is called as the final drive gear ratio. Right, so this is called conventional normal transmission reduction ratio, and this is called the final drive reduction ratio because this is actually the differential component. So since the differential component is finally connected to the drive system, it is actually, we call it as final drive ratio, right? So we have a certain ratio. For example, if there are 100 teeth here, and here there are 50 teeth, then overall it is like 2. The ratio is 2. Similarly, if we are having 200 teeth, sir, 100 teeth here, and here we are having 30 teeth, right? In that case, the ratio will change. So accordingly, depending upon the gear ratio and final drive ratio, we need to add, we need to use that in the formula here. And so as I mentioned, we need to multiply that value. That's we just, for example, we need to take this IG value. So IG value is nothing but this. For example, this is an electric motor. And once the electric motor runs, it is actually going to rotate this particular gear. Look at this small gear, this one. And once this gear rotates, this will rotate this bigger gear. So why there is a small and bigger one? Because it is a reduction, multiplication of torque, right? So there is a multiplication of torque happening in this case. So that is why the input gear, the driving gear is actually small, driven gear is bigger. And once this is driven, this is in the same shaft. And so once this gear is driving, automatically started driving, this will be also be run. So this gear is connected to this particular gear. This is meshed with this gear. So this will run this gear, and this gear will, since it is the same shaft, this will also rotate. And once this gear rotates, this will rotate this gear. This is the final drive ratio. So this is final drive ratio, and this is the gear ratio. So once the motor is giving, for example, 300 Newton meter of torque, the 300 Newton meter torque will be getting multiplied into 3. For example, 3 into 300 is 900 Newton meter. So here it will become 900 Newton meter, and multiplied by 4. If this is the ratio between these two gears, 4:1, then 4 into 900, how much it is? 3600 Newton meter. So the motor is just developing 300 Newton meter, whereas the 300 Newton meter is multiplied into 3600 Newton meter by the combination of gear and final drive ratio. Right, so that is how the EV application works. So when we are modeling, we need to consider all these conditions actually. So that is a transmission efficiency, final drive ratio, a gear ratio, from which we will be able to calculate the total wheel torque developed by the system. Right, so that's the approach basically. And if we know the tractive force, the tractive force, that means the traction resistance, if you remember, we calculated, right? So when we multiply that with the rolling radius of the tire, rolling radius of the tire, then we will calculate the wheel torque. So we have to compare this wheel torque with this wheel torque. So we need to check whether the wheel torque developed by the vehicle, developed by the motor and the drive system, is actually more than the total resistance. If this value, if that IG multiplied by IO multiplied by eta T multiplied by TP, if this value is not greater than the total resistance of the vehicle, what is the case? Can any participant tell me? If the wheel torque developed by the power plant in combination with the gear ratio is not greater than the total resistance, then whether the vehicle will move or not. Whether the vehicle will move or not from its rest position.
Vehicle can't move.
Yes. So once we, if we are not able to develop, because the resistance, total resistance that is actually stopping our vehicle is greater. So if that is the case, then your vehicle will not be able to move. So obviously we need to, so according unless we have a wheel torque which is greater than the total resistance, we need to keep on modifying these factors, IG value, IO value, or the TP value. The TP means the motor torque, right? So we cannot keep on increasing the motor torque too much. So if we keep on increasing the motor torque is directly proportional to what parameter of the motor? Motor torque, it is directly proportional to which parameter? What is the parameter which actually develops the torque of an electric motor? So it is basically the electric current, right? So if we keep on increasing the motor torque, the requirement of the motor torque, then obviously it will increase the current input requirement for the motor. And if it increases the current requirement, then obviously it will increase the sizing of all the components, sizing of the inverter component, everything will increase. So more than a certain limit, we call it as a trade-off point. So more than a certain trade-off point, we cannot keep on increasing the power plant torque for a certain application. Say two-wheeler means two-wheeler, for a two-wheeler, whatever motor we can develop, we can place. We cannot place a motor of a passenger car for a two-wheeler. Obviously, that is not possible. So when we look at a particular application-based selection and sizing of components should be done. And once we reach the trade-off point of an electric motor, then obviously we have other way to increase the wheel torque. That is the gear ratio. Even with gear ratio, if we have increased the gear ratio to maximum extent, but still we are not able to meet the required torque, then the final option is the final drive ratio. So by this combination of power plant torque or IG, IO, all these values, we should be able to meet the required torque. So now my question to the participants: if still we have reached the final level, we have reached the maximum final drive ratio, we have reached the maximum gear ratio that can be placed there, and we have reached the maximum motor torque. Till now we are not able to reach the total torque requirement. Now what is the solution? Any idea? We have reached the maximum on all these conditions. Now there is no other way in this side. So now what do you people think that we can do to solve this issue as a powertrain engineer? Any input, any idea here? Any inputs from participants? Any inputs from participants? If we are not able to increase the motor torque, if we are not able to further increase the gear ratio, final drive ratio, then what do you think the other way to solve this problem? Obviously, there are other multiple ways. Say this is the right hand side of the equation, right? So left hand side of the equation, we have this total resistance. So what else we can do is to reduce the total resistance of the vehicle, right? How can we reduce the total resistance of the vehicle? Any idea from the participants? How can we reduce the total resistance of an electric vehicle? Decrease the drag. Okay, very good. So one of the ways to decrease the drag. So to decrease the drag, what we can do? So we can optimize the design of the vehicle. Or what about when you look at the formula, the rolling resistance, all the resistance, weight is a very important factor. Have you seen that? The normal load of the vehicle, and if you look at the gradient distance, there also mass of the vehicle. So mass of the vehicle, the weight of the overall weight of the vehicle, it is an important and deciding factor for the total weight of the vehicle. So, right? So either it is a passenger car or a truck or bus, depending upon the vehicle type, the vehicle weight is playing a very important role. So if we are not able to optimize the motor torque, gear ratio, final entry ratio to meet a certain requirement, then obviously the only way to do that is to modify the vehicle weight. So we need to see where and all we can optimize the weight, where to reduce the weight. And so if even if you reduce every gram in each component, obviously this will help a lot in finally improving the torque requirement, right? So that's why in electric vehicle I used to tell every gram matters. Every gram matters. So that is very important in EV domain. So we need to see the possibilities to reduce the weight, overall weight of the vehicle at any point of place. That's how we calculate it. And finally, so at a certain point we will be able to see that the traction torque, the tractive force generated is sufficient from the motor perspective. And these are all like gear ratio. Once we have more gear ratio, then it will be needed. So basically for electric vehicle, as I told, 1 or 2 gear is sufficient for the electric vehicles basically, right? So that's the advantage. So if you look at the compared to IC engines, you know, the electric motors, they naturally say if you using an IC engine, we need to have first gear, second gear, third gear, fourth gear in order to reach this plot, right? Whereas the electric motor, if you look at this plot, it is naturally plotting in this area only. The torque variation of an electric motor, it is naturally there in that line where we need actually for a vehicle application, right? So the characteristic, that is why we don't need this third gear, fourth gear, second gear at all. Even only one gear, most of the vehicles today, they just have the first gear basically, because just to further boost the torque requirement. Otherwise, it is already having the characteristic required for a conventional vehicle basically. That's why electric vehicles does not need a second gear, third gear, fourth gear and all, right? So this is the case. This is how we model it, and then the electrical subsystems will come. Further calculations are there, right? So I'm not going to go deep into this calculation right now, but just to have an understanding here. So just we will just go to an example model, you know, example model. So yesterday, one of the participants asked, you know, the importing data, you know, basically from us driving cycle data. I think, may I know who is that participant yesterday who asked for this Excel, you know, how to plot or how to import driving cycle. Someone asked this question yesterday. So basically, you can use the import, you know, import data function. You know, in the you can see this option here. So using the import data from file on the MATLAB side. Is my MATLAB window visible for everyone, madam?
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. So we can press the import data button, and once you press the import data button, it will ask you what is the Excel sheet you want to, say you can see spreadsheet .xls whatever the format you want, you can import that and you can just open it here. And you can create a script like this, you can see here. So you can create a script like this that you want to import driving cycle data, and you have to mention the rows and column of that particular data. So that you have to mention here. Right. So what I will do, I will share the script to you so that you can apply the same for your application as well. Right. So let me take one example, you know, the model, and let us understand the way they have actually done it. You know, they have applied this particular thing. Let me open a case scenario, and then one by one we'll understand that. So we need to first browse for that particular folder. So otherwise the system will not work properly. Right. So this is basically one of the model which is you can build in MATLAB Simulink. So let me just open the model and just to first give an you know, understanding on the model, how it has been developed here, and then we'll go for the what to say, the parameter based understanding. You know, how they have built it. So if you look at this particular model, so you can look at here. So the whole vehicle, the whole electric vehicle has been modeled inside this particular system, and it is a very. There are many different approach, to model the vehicle completely, right? Different approaches are there. One of the approach is physics modeling, right? Using each and every equation for each and every component, the physical equation of each and every component. We need to model the complete model. That is quite very difficult for a beginner, and moreover someone who want to do the work much faster, quicker. You cannot model everything one by one using the equations, so it is going to be very difficult for the people. So if you are a student, and if there are any student who want to understand the physical equations behind the motor, or understand the physical equations behind the battery, so if they are just working on some subsystem, yes, in that case, yes, it might be possible for them to complete the total equation, generating the equation, converting them into model, and applying the inputs and outputs. So that is quite possible. But when we have a full vehicle model development using the complete physical equations and all these things, it is definitely going to consume a lot of time. So depending upon the time availability, we can take different approach, either physics-based model approach, or if we use software like MATLAB and Simulink, we have something called Simscape here, right? So I think people have used the Simscape previously. So using Simscape, we can use some ready-made options available in the Simscape model, right? So let me just open that as well, introduce that as well to some of the participants. So we can just open the library browser. Just click on the library browser, and once we go to the library browser, we have Simscape option. So this is the Simscape option. In the Simscape option, we have something called driveline. This is the driveline option. Here is where the components related to the wheel, brake, clutches, gears, sensors, a tire, transmission, all these things will be coming under this particular category, right? And we have electrical category, where we have the sensors, transducers, active passive circuits, circuit components, ICs, right? Switches, all connectors, all these things come under the Simscape electrical line. And mostly these two are required, mostly for the EV modeling. And in addition to these two, we also have the vehicle dynamics block set, where we have the powertrain block set, where we can use the different final drive component, or couplings, propulsion unit, transmission unit. So various systems are there. And if you want to use a motor, the electric motor, then obviously we need to go into the electrical Simscape electrical line. And in this, we have to go for different, if we, for example, if we need to have a semiconductor switches, converters, sensors, all these things will be there. And if we want to use the motors, then we have to go for electromechanical option. Here almost all the motors which are available in the market will be there. Say synchronous motors, like permanent magnet synchronous motor, switched reluctance motor, brushed motor, and then brushless DC motor, and then asynchronous motor. So all these motors are already, the models are available. You can look at it. So the different synchronous motor with the different motors are available. Permanent magnet, PMSM motors are available, right? BLDC motor, you can see BLDC motor is available. So all the relevant areas, relevant motors are available, right? And in case if your institute, I think most of the institutes have the full campus wide license, right? And is there any license for in your institute? Maybe let me know if you have a full campus wide license. So if that is the case, then you will have these block sets additionally, motor control block set and powertrain block set. These are all very fantastic block sets provided by MATLAB, in addition to these Simscape models, because these block sets are very useful in order to understand the complete vehicle level modeling concept, right? So if you have a complete head count license in your institute, I think you will have the access to open all these things in your MATLAB. So if anyone have that, you can put it in the message, put it in the chat box as well, right? So using those options in the Simscape, we can build a complete electric vehicle model. And if you look at this particular example, right, so we have a drive model, so where we have the driving cycle and all these things coming here. So basically the driving cycle factor, that means the route where the vehicle is going to run, the model vehicle which is modeled here, to which route it is going to run, that is there in this driver and environment model. and then we have the high voltage battery subsystem. So in this subsystem, it is basically representing the battery, high voltage battery. We will come to that. And we have a motor drive subsystem. We will be having the motor and the drive, control drive, all these things inside this motor drive subsystem. And here we have the reduction gear. So you know that in our electric vehicle, we use a single reduction or a dual reduction, mostly single reduction gear with the final drive gear ratio. So that is modeled here in this reduction gear. And finally, after the gear ratio, it is actually coming to the wheel, right? It is coming to the shaft and then to the wheels. So what is happening in a wheel, on a tire and a wheel? So it is a vehicle dynamics perspective. So all the vehicle dynamics related components are modeled inside the longitudinal vehicle model, which is one of the very simplest way of developing a vehicle model for a MATLAB environment, right? So this is the whole vehicle model. So let us take it one by one. Say, for example, if we take the driver and environment, right? So once we open the driver and environment, the first initial aspect is actually applying a driving cycle. So we need to select the driving cycle to which we are going to apply. So if you click this driving cycle source, so where to find this option? So basically this option will be available in the input option. When we open the MATLAB, when we have the the Simulink library browser. Here we can see the input ports and output ports and all these things. We can, so for example, sources. So on the sources side, we can input, we can input the driving cycles here, right? So we can source the driving cycles here, basically using the input port, the source as a source. It is basically providing the input, basically, right? So if you look at the driving cycle, when you click on the driving cycle, just to open the help window, and I think people know that. So you have to just look at the help window to understand how to use this thing. So in a powertrain block set, say if for example, just go to the vehicle dynamics block set, just go to the library browser and just search the vehicle dynamics block set. And once we open the vehicle dynamics block set, so there we have the powertrain, steering, on all these things are there, and we have something called vehicle scenario. So once we open the vehicle scenario, there we have the drive cycle and maneuvers. So here is where the drive cycle source is there. Just you need to drag and drop it in the MATLAB window. So that's how we input the drive cycle source actually, right? So similar to that, so once you can see the drive cycle source has got input, and once it is input, we have to just click on that and select what is the drive cycle that you want to follow. So ECE R15 or NEDC cycle or WLTP for two-wheeler application, WLTP cycle is there. So or WMTC. So there are different driving cycles are there. So we have to select the driving cycle whatever you want. Or else if you don't have any driving cycle, you have it in Excel format, then just click on the .xls format file and just what is the source file name? Just click on that source file name here, right? And just enter that, and you will be able to import the driving cycle, right? So is it clear for someone who may know who is the one who asked this question yesterday? The driving cycle import is he or she here? Me. Okay, yes. Ma'am. Okay. So is it clear for you, ma'am? Like, have you seen this? So just you need to import. Let me once again show it to you. Okay. Just you need to go to the vehicle dynamics block set. The vehicle dynamics block set here. Okay. And once you have the vehicle dynamics block set, you have to go to the vehicle scenario. And inside vehicle scenario, you have to click drive cycle and maneuver. So there you have the drive cycle source as the block. So just you have to drag and drop the block into Simulink window, and just you need to double click on it. And once you double click, it will ask you what is the driving cycle. There you have to go to the last option .mat, .xls, .xlxs, and just click on that and just specify. You can use the driving source in the file here directly, right? So that's how you can import it, ma'am, directly here.
Okay, sir.
Yes. In addition to this, once we have a driving cycle, we can use that driving cycle. So your driving cycle basically gives the vehicle reference speed input, right? It is basically provides the reference speed input. So based upon the reference speed input, right, the vehicle speed, what we are taking, the vehicle speed is basically it is in kilometer per hour, right? So here what they are doing is they are converting that kilometer per hour into meter per minute. Meter per minute. Why they are converting it into meter per minute? Because they are actually using the vehicle speed. They are actually now calculating the motor speed required for that application. So they are converting the vehicle speed into, using unit conversion, they are converting that into meter per minute, and then applying that for the tire RPM reference. So here is where we calculate using the motor speed reference value multiplied by that means the tire radius, multiply that, convert the tire radius, in centimeter to meter, and then using the formula of 2 pi r, right? 2 pi r into the vehicle speed in terms of meter, you get the total RPM, and multiply that with the gear ratio, we get the motor reference RPM. So using the multiplication of the motor RPM versus, that means the wheel speed RPM versus the gear ratio, we will be able to find what is the actual motor RPM that is to be there. So this is here the motor reference. We call it as motor speed reference calculation, which is kept here in this model. And all these things are coming as the input, output of this vehicle driver and environment. Right. So this is the first model, first subsystem of the vehicle model. And then we have the high voltage battery. So on the high voltage battery here in this particular model method, they have used the voltage source and internal resistance block. So these blocks are already available in the electrical parameter. Electrical subsystem is in the Simulink library. Just you need to go to the library and just select a voltage source. I think it's all well known to participants, so mostly people will know this. Just note, you need to create the voltage source. There's a DC voltage source or AC voltage source, current controlled voltage source. What is the type of voltage source we need? We need to select that, and we need to use that here. So this is basically something which is like which is not using physical equation, but it is ready-made subsystem models which are available in the Simulink window. Just you can drag and drop it here and connect the system in such a way, similar to a battery pack, right? So basically a battery pack is nothing but it is a DC voltage source which has some internal resistance. So we need to specify what is the internal resistance here. So here they have specified everything in a variable format. They have not just typed all the values here. They have just mentioned that battery internal resistance means battery dot internal underscore R underscore ohm. So that is a variable name, right? Similarly, voltage source, the voltage value is battery dot voltage underscore V. So all these variables are there. I will show you the variable, how they have defined it. So all these, this is the battery model. And in this battery model, they also included the voltage sensor, current sensor, and which to indicate the battery status. What is the status of the battery? Whether the battery is in a, that means status of the battery in the sense, what is the battery power available, what is the battery current, what is the battery voltage, and what is the power loss in the battery. So everything is indicated here using the battery status subsystem. And finally, the battery positive, battery negative, it is connected to the Simscape bus, and that positive negative is the output of this high voltage battery subsystem. And positive negative, basically the battery is connected to the drive, right? It is connected to the inverter system. So it is coming into the motor drive unit, motor drive subsystem. Just double click on the motor drive subsystem. Here you will see both the motor. See, this is the motor component itself. You can see this is the motor and drive subsystem level. So here there are certain inputs we need to provide. What is the maximum torque? What is the maximum power of the motor? All these things are in terms of variable. So once we need to define the variable here, and we need to give the parameters values for the variable at a difference in the MATLAB script window, right? So we have to see the speed controller. So all these things come under this motor subsystem. Here they also have a motion sensor to determine what is the RPM, to speed and position of the motor. So all these things make this motor drive ratio. This is a very simplistic way of using the motor model, right? I will also show you another model where the motor drive unit, using the inverter and other subsystem, it is more detailedly developed. So depending upon how detailed we develop the model, the accuracy of the system will be dependent on that. So the reduction ratio, for example, it is basically nothing but a gear, a simple gear. So we need to specify what is the gear ratio. So gear ratio value, what is the meshing loss, what is the viscous loss, everything. If there is a value, then we need to specify. Otherwise, we need to give it in the default value, what is available there. So this is the gear ratio here mentioned here. And once this is there, finally the longitudinal vehicle model. Here is where the complete vehicle model, that means the this is basically a 1D model. It's a very simplistic 1D model represented by the representative for a vehicle. So it includes the factors like your rolling resistance coefficient, the vehicle mass, and basically the background is nothing but if you remember the formulas which I told, the rolling resistance coefficient, rolling resistance, gradient resistance, aerodynamic resistance, inertial resistance, all these things are actually calculated here, and the final value of the overall total traction force, everything is calculated here, and that is where you get the the outputs basically. So the kilometer per hour output and what is the axle. So once we open this, you'll be able to see the gradient, tire rolling resistance. These are all the variables. So we need to define all these variables in the beginning stage itself. Once we develop the model. So all these are making the whole system, and finally we have a measurement and scope subsystem where we need to indicate what are all the things that you want to display, or to measure. Say if you want to measure the vehicle speed, you want to measure the motor speed, you want to measure the motor torque command, and you want to measure the battery power and battery current, battery charge availability, the motor maximum speed, and all these values, whatever we need, we can use it in the measurement and scope window, so that we will be able to get all the details in all the parameters in detail. Right. So once if we want to define the motor parameter, right, so we need to create a script. We need to create a MATLAB script like this. Say for example, this is the say we can see this is the driving cycle vehicle level script. So here they have mentioned very clearly what is the vehicle mass, the weight of the mass, the weight of the vehicle. So the vehicle level, just click on this. This is the script for the vehicle parameters for the vehicle. So what are the different parameters needed? One is the vehicle mass, which is specified as 1600 kilogram, tire rolling radius in centimeter they give. So centimeter, it is 30 centimeter, and if it is in mm, we need to convert that into mm. And road load value and road load in terms of kilometer per hour, and all these things are mentioned basically on the vehicle model. So that is the vehicle side model, and then tire radius, tire diameter, and then motor specific. If you have motor drive, if you click on the motor drive parameter, then motor related parameters are there. So what is the maximum torque, what is the maximum power, what is this torque speed vector, what is the torque vector of the motor. So speed vector, torque vector is nothing but very simple. Just we need to plot, we need to create an Excel sheet. So the Excel sheet between torque versus speed, right? Torque versus speed. So just click on this, if you will be able to see, this is just an Excel sheet, kind of Excel sheet. Just we need to import that here. Right. So using this window, you can import the motor drive parameter. Just we need to plot. If you remember the yesterday's picture, we have a motor torque speed plot, right? Say something like this, something looking like this. There will be a motor torque versus motor speed plot. So just we need to plot that here in the form of Excel sheet, or you can directly use that in the script window. Directly type it as speed vector or torque vector. Like this, we can introduce that values, and what is the maximum torque value. All these things, whatever the variables that we are going to use inside the model, all the variables shall be defined in this particular script itself as a .m file. So we need to save this as a .m file basically. So we can specify all the other variables like CG height, the distance, that means the drag coefficient value, gear ratio. All these things are specified very clearly, right? So we need to just understand that all the variables are specified, and once we need to make any changes, right? Say if now we have based upon this model developed, right, we have done a simulation and we are getting some results. Based on the result, now we are not satisfied. We are seeing that the vehicle is not able to meet the range requirement, right? So because you saw that this driving cycle, right, that we use this FTP, for example, in this case FTP driving cycle. So this FTP driving cycle, it is actually 2474 seconds. So 2474 seconds. That means what? How much minutes it is? It's almost 41 minutes, right? Almost 41 minutes. So if it is 41 minutes, it's almost 1 hour. It's almost 1 hour, you can say. And see that for a 1 hour time, my vehicle is not running. So we are seeing that as per the inputs we have given in this model, we are seeing that the vehicle is not able to run 41 minutes in this particular model. So now what we need to do, we need to do some changes on this model such that the vehicle will actually complete this 41 minutes. So that is the target for this particular driving cycle. So similarly, if we select some other driving cycle, say for example, let it be NEDC, right? And if I select NEDC as the driving cycle, then the number overall change, the time is 1180 seconds. So if it is 1180 seconds, it is nothing but totally 19 minutes, almost 19.6 minutes, almost 20 minutes. So we have to see whether the vehicle is able to complete this 20-minute driving cycle. It's equal to 20 minutes running on the field. It's almost equal. We cannot say it's completely equal because it is a driving cycle. It's an approximation of real world driving, right? So we need to drive the vehicle in this driving cycle as per driving cycle data, and we need to see whether the vehicle is running 20 minutes. Still, if the vehicle is not able to run in 20 minutes as per the driving cycle, then yes, definitely we need to make multiple changes on the model. We have to improve the we have to improve the battery packs capacity, or we need to reduce the total resistance of the vehicle by reducing the weight or some other factors, right? So likewise, we need to optimize each and every factor, and we need to make sure finally that the vehicle is completing the particular driving cycle. So that is the final requirement of building a model finally. Right, so that's the, so here we define all the parameters. This is how using a MATLAB script window. It's a very simple thing, for a student. There are some students who are attending this session may don't think that you need to have a lot of programming skills and all these things for this. Definitely not. These are just specifications. You can define it in your own way. This is vehicle mass _ kg. This is like they have represented in their for easier understanding. Since these are all vehicle level parameter, they have mentioned it as vehicle dot. Battery level parameter, battery dot. Motor drive related parameter, motor drive dot. So likewise, they have specified the parameters in order to understand them very easily. So that's how they have done it, right? So we can take, we can use different approach. For the same thing, we can use different approach. So there won't be any concern on that. So that's the that's one of the thing. And then if we have some other models, the motor side, if you want to understand the motor level model on how to use PMSM drive system, the permanent magnet drive system. Say this is an example, best example. So you can see here, that very clearly. This is the motor. This is the permanent magnet synchronous motor. Let me zoom this. This is the permanent magnet synchronous motor, and everyone know that the permanent magnet synchronous motor, it is actually operating with a 3-phase current input, and the 3-phase current input is nothing but it is coming from the inverter, right? So the inverter is actually getting a positive negative, that means a DC source. So you can see that this is the inverter, the 3-phase inverter. The 3-phase inverter is getting positive from the battery and the negative from the battery. Right, so these are the two inputs from the inverter, and this inverter also has, which when we open the inverter, we have the IGBT sitting inside. See, these are the 6 IGBTs, because there is one single motor here. So using this 6 IGBTs, we can specify we can actually create a inverter model. So when we have to click on the IGBT, basically the parameters that we need to define are what is the forward voltage, what is the on state resistance, off state conductance, and what is the threshold voltage finally. So all these values we need to specify here in this inductor model, and what is the total on resistance of conductance on the integral diode side. All these things once we specify here, finally we have the overall inverter model. And all this, this IGBT is available in the electrical subsystem, so you don't need to worry about it. So once you type, just type IGBT, just type IGBT here. I think people would have used it already in many applications. So, but still, I'm just giving it for some fresh people who might be new to this particular modeling. So in this case, you can just see, you can use the IGBTs available in the system and just drag and drop it into your system. So just bring the IGBT model, IGBT tool into the system here, and you can bring it to the subsystem and just build this inverter. And once we have the inverter system, then we have the 3-phase. Finally the output is IA, IB, IC. So that IA, IB, IC, they are using a current sensor inside this, and the current sensor measures what are the IA, IB, IC value, and that is actually one of the major input for the controller. Everyone know that, right? So if you have studied about the motor controller operation, everyone know that the field-oriented control, I think people have studied about the field-oriented control. So for the field-oriented control, multiple parameters inputs are very important. One is the current values, IA, IB, IC value. And the other important value is the encoder value. That means the motor position, the rotor position value or the rotor speed value, right? All these are very important. So using these inputs, current sensor, voltage sensor, and the encoder, using an encoder, we are getting the current that this is the encoder basically. So using this encoder, that means nothing but rotational motion sensor and torque sensor. Using these two sensors, we are actually generating the value of the rotor position. What is the radian at which the rotor is there? What is the radian per second speed of the motor? And what is the Newton meter torque of the motor? All these things are calculated from the torques, measured from the torque sensor and the rotational motion sensor. And all these are available as model block sets in MATLAB Simulink. Just bring it and we have the encoder, and the encoder output is provided into the final controller, and based upon all these inputs, the controller decides what is the signal that has to be generated on the inverter, to the inverter system. That means which IGBT, which switch has to be open, which switch has to be closed. All this decision is taken by the the controller, and it is based upon these inputs, right? And once it is decided, then the inputs are coming to the motor. You can see the IA, IB, IC value, the three-phase currents are coming inside the motor, and this is where the motor model. This is the motor model, and in this motor model, we need to specify all these motor parameters, motor related parameters. So it includes the direct axis current, quadrature axis current, number of pole pairs, the winding type that we are going to use, and the stator resistance per phase. All these are the very, very important, significant parameters we need to define here, right? So without these parameters, it is very difficult for the model to basically function properly. So after providing all these input models, we will be able to develop the output torque from this system, and that is what it is going to inside the encoder, and we are getting the gear. It is going to the gear output finally, right? That is what it is coming as the output, and from here it is actually connected to the load inertia. That's how it comes to the gear. It's the final output basically. So when you run the model, you'll be able to see, we can build a scope for motor speed, compare the motor speed, reference speed, compare the motor torque, reference torque, compare that means the speed reference. This is basically speed reference in the sense which one? Speed reference means the driving cycle speed reference. So we are comparing whether the vehicle speed and the driving cycle speed both are matching or not. So that's the end requirement of this particular model. So is there any question from the participants here in this particular model environment? Is there any question in this particular motor model?
So there are questions in the chat box, sir.
Okay. Yes. Okay, I don't know when they have asked this question, when we are discussing at which topic. Okay, torque sensor requirements they have asked. Okay. Yes. So the thing is, parallel diode is not required. So where you are mentioning, sir, the parallel diode requirement, I'm not getting it. Maybe exactly which location, if it is, you can let me know. And on the next question, is the practical sensor available? Yes, obviously there are sensors available, sir. Actually, in the market, torque sensors available. So you can definitely source it from the market. So there are many companies, even in Coimbatore also there are some companies which are already who are already selling this torque sensors. So you have torque sensors from bigger companies like Bosch and other companies as well. But still there are even other low-end torque sensors as well. And on the diode side, it is actually inbuilt, sir. Since I told the model is, it's like partially we are building it, and partially it is like inbuilt model. The control part, it is everything being taken care by the inbuilt model itself. So if we are going to develop the completely a new inverter model, then definitely yes, each and every component has to be modeled inside the inverter, sir, including the diode and all this gate driver circuit and the switching circuit, everything. And if we simulate the already available model in MATLAB, can we match with the experimental data? Yes, we can do, sir. We can definitely do that. So that is why we have an option. Even you can do the the model simulation in a live condition as well. That is where we use the HIL and SIL setup, the hardware in loop and software in loop setup. So using the DSpace kind of environment, right? We can use the vehicle, and that means we can run the simulation directly with emulating some of the parameters. So you can emulate the battery, you can emulate the motor drive system. So whichever the component, if you have the vehicle with you, say for example, if you have the battery with you, then you can emulate the motor. So if you have the motor with you, then you can emulate the battery. So we have some emulation systems for that. So that will be useful when you are when you want to do a kind of experimental simulation. That is possible, sir. And in addition to this, we can also interface with some of the vehicles, some of the softwares like G Suite, Ricardo, and Car Maker. We have something called IPG Car Maker. So these are all real-time vehicle testing softwares. IPG Car Maker, it's a real-time vehicle testing software. So we can actually MATLAB Simulink, they provide a very good interface between all these softwares. So you can create any model in this MATLAB Simulink environment. Even you can interface that with these softwares what I mentioned. So you can definitely, it is possible. So we can compare with the real-time experimental value. So if Sir is telling, if we are procuring one PMSM from market, what are the parameters to be used for simulation? So that is what we have specified here, sir. Basically the coil level, the resistance values of the system, and what are the losses. If we are purchasing the motor, you have to just look at the losses. So basically the characterization, you can what you can do is, once you purchase the motor, if in case the manufacturer is not providing all the parameters required, you can do a characterization test, and in the characterization test you can calculate the for example, the output power, maximum output power, maximum current, continuous current handled by the motor, peak current handled by the motor. If the peak current is handled by the motor, how much time, how much seconds it is able to handle that current, and then the internal parameters like what is the total torque density and the flux density, which is being displayed by the motor system. If it is a permanent magnet, then additionally permanent magnet related PMSM permanent magnet related requirements will be there, parameters will be there. And if it is an induction motor, then yes, we can create accordingly we should collect the data. Yes, there are standard procedures, sir, actually. Yes, so sir is asking how can we characterize the motor? Is there any standard setup? Let me take one example. So because that is the question generally comes, for many times the participants. So I have some sources, but I need to search it. Let me check it, sir. So this is one example, actually, the electric motor test setup, sir. Look at this particular thing. Is it visible, sir, actually? Is it visible for you?
Yes, I think it's visible.
Yes.
So this is a kind of a testing setup, sir, actually, for if you want to study the performance or the overall characteristic, how it performs with a particular load. In addition to, if you don't have for example, a battery and all these things, you can emulate that. But if you just want to characterize the motor alone, then just you can simply use a motor, what is a conventional the test motor which you want to test it, and you should have a proper DC power supply for the system, and then you can include the load engine. You can use as another motor as a load motor, basically, right? So this is an example test setup what they have actually utilized in this particular application. They have is depending upon the motor, you need to include the cooling requirements as well. If there is no cooling requirement, then not required, and it is not required to include all these factors, actually. So this is a kind of a setup structure, basically. But basically, when you get a motor characterization, a simple motor characterization setup, we have multiple tests, that cannot be completely done in a single setup, sir, actually, because say thermal, there is a separate test for thermal cycling. So we need to check how the motor is going to behave in a kind of a high performance environment, continuous running environment, how much temperature it rises. So the ability of the motor to operate at different temperature. So we need to characterize the temperature related thermal performance of the motor separately, and the mechanical performance, generating the torque, generating the power, that is separate. So all these things in a single setup. Yes, there are some companies which have developed such a setup actually, but maybe if you need to know the standard, the testing standard, I could give you, sir, the document for that. Will the standard document will be okay for you, sir, to characterize electric motor or inverter? Will that be fine for you if I provide that same? Okay, when we use these machines, how we test different drive conditions. Okay, means on the motor side, sir, motor alone, we cannot test all the drive level, the operations of a vehicle level operations, basically, right? So, but as a motor setup, we can just apply certain load requirement from with using another motor. You have to use one motor, another motor. Let me show the setup, an example setup that we have developed for one institute actually. For one college, we have already provided that. Look at this particular example with our partner device. This is one example setup we have developed, the motor generator. So this is basically the test motor. This is the test motor, and this is the motor which is actually supporting, which is driving this test motor. So we can use any motor here. Our test motor can be any different motor. Just we need to optimize the model. Make the changes on the mounting side. Here you can see, using this setup, that the setup which we have built here, this we can help. This will help you to characterize, say for example, plot the speed torque mapping of the motor, efficiency mapping of the motor, starting torque, pull up torque, and breakdown torque, and running torque of the motor. And even we can include the regeneration capability of the motor also in this particular thing, right? So you'll be able to perform these kind of test experiments in this particular things. Say just a very simple drive. This is the inverter component. This is the drive motor component which is tested, and this is the load. This is the basically the load motor which you are going to apply. Simple setup, which is already we have provided with our partner Device Electronics in Pune. We are already working with some institutions actually in Tamil Nadu and Karnataka, Kerala. So we are in discussion with other institutes. So we'll be like, this is part of our the center of excellence. We have a center of excellence of electric mobility. So all these things are coming under this center of excellence. So even this is also an example, performance testing rig actually. So using this rig, we can characterize the motor and plot the speed torque characteristic, speed control behavior of the controller. Everything we can study here. Yes. So maybe if you need this data, let me know, sir, so that I will share you this PDF document to you. So if in future, if there is any requirement, we can definitely help to support you on that aspect. So in this case, so they have done this particular model. So it's the PMSM controller. We have the controller, three-phase inverter, and the overall the motor model itself is there. So let me also show you one example where every equation-based model we have built. I will show you that example as well. This is something which is available in MATLAB itself. So we will also show you some models which are developed using physics-based equation. So we can see that plot here, the reference speed versus motor speed, and the reference torque versus motor torque. So it is actually trying to meet the reference torque value, but there is a lot of torque ripple happening in the system, right? So we can, so look at the reference. This is the reference RPM versus the motor speed RPM, motor speed. So it is definitely not completely meeting the RPM requirement of the motor. So it is definitely taking some time to reach the particular value. So The values are like the maximum. It has not crossed the reference RPM value. So that's the only thing, notable thing actually. And this up and down, why this up and down is happening, because this driving cycle, what we have applied, in this particular case, the driving cycles are actually, there is an acceleration, deceleration, both the acceleration, deceleration conditions are there. So because of that, we are seeing that there is a variation on that positive torque, negative torque, positive torque, negative torque is there, since there is an acceleration, deceleration variation. So when we look at the overall for the field oriented control, for the field oriented control operation of the PMSM motor, we need to provide the voltage sensing input, current sensing input, and then you can say IA, IB, IC reference sensing input. All these things are the input reference signals. So what we understand from here is, even if you look at the original physical model, original drive system, all these sensors, they play a very important role. If these sensors have poor accuracy, and if their accuracy is not enough, then they are not providing the right information about the motor position, motor speed, or the current inside the running inside the motor, or the voltage of the operating in the motor. If any of these values are not proper or not perfect, then obviously that will lead to lot of problems inside the control part, and obviously the motor will not be properly controlled. So there will be lot of torque ripple, or it will not be able to meet the required torque performance requirement. So all these things are so that sensors, they play a very significant role on the overall the motor development case. So that's something which we need to understand when we select a sensor. We need to understand all the cases actually. So let me open some more examples as well to to understand the overall case. So this in this case, actually we have the longitudinal vehicle dynamic model, right? So we saw that it is a 1D model. So when we run the simulation, we'll be able to see the vehicle speed, overall gradability, performance of the vehicle, and brake force, axle torque. So whatever the plot, basically first initially as a beginner, we can start using the you can start using different basic level parameters, so like vehicle speed output and vehicle torque output. So basic level, and then once we understand that, then we can start applying different cases. So we can start creating different gradient condition, and we can see, just by varying the gradient condition, we can look at the performance of the drive system, according to according to the gradient values, right? So coming month, the April month, actually the April end or May starting, we are actually organizing a detailed program on model based simulation. So if any of the parties, that is actually a 1 week course, 1 week online course, which is actually done in our platform. So anyone interested to enhance the knowledge on the model based development of component level as well as vehicle level model development using multiple softwares, Ricardo, MATLAB Simulink, and other softwares will be there. So if anyone interested to attend that program, kindly put it in the chat box. Show your interest by giving your email ID. So we will once we start the program, we will inform you about that is like complete model. Each and every subsystem development will be there, and hands-on practice sessions will be there. So there will be the trainer will be involved with each and every person. So we will be able to discuss about each and every model in detail. So any participants interested for that, you can definitely reach us anytime for that case. Even if we want to conduct such program in your institute also, let us know, so we can organize the model based development detailed program for that. So that is one approach. This is actually one approach for modeling the system, right? So there are other ways, the other ways that we can build the model, right? So let us understand one more example, some more examples in the system. If there are any questions here till now, kindly let us know. So one more option is the powertrain control block set. that is actually one of the very efficient option available in MATLAB Simulink. This is basically very helpful for any research scholar, anyone working in the MATLAB Simulink environment or modeling and simulation environment at a vehicle level. Basically, even if you want to work on motor component level, then there is separate block set for that. I'll talk about that. So if you look at this powertrain block set, right? So we have the complete vehicle level block sets available here. So just we can open up one example block set here. Let me take one example available here, and just let us understand it, deeper. How they have developed this particular model completely. Yes. So this particular example, if you look at, we have the same, driving cycle, longitudinal driver, and the controller and passenger car model. Just click on the controller model. Once we click on the controller model, we have the powertrain control module. So this is basically the main control module, which decides the torque function, the output torque required by the vehicle. So to operate this powertrain controller, we need to provide all these parameters. What are the parameters? One is the motor speed, battery current, battery power, battery SOC. So these three are battery related parameters. And we have vehicle speed feedback, deceleration command, acceleration command. So where are these commands coming from? So acceleration command, it is coming from accelerator pedal position sensor. Deceleration command, it is coming from brake pedal position sensor. Vehicle speed feedback, that is coming from vehicle speed sensor, right? All these are sensor inputs. And battery SOC, battery power, battery current. These are all information sourced from the battery BMS. And then the motor speed generated from the motor speed sensor. So all these are inputs for this powertrain control module. And once you open this module, you will be able to see the complete subsystem of the motor control module. So one is the the motor arbitration circuit, where we have the motor torque requirement. The motor torque command is basically calculated inside this, and there is a separate regenerative braking here. You can very clearly see they have applied series regenerative braking. Do you people remember why series regenerative braking is applied here? Do you people remember that the discussion happened yesterday? Why series regenerative braking is applied in a model like this? If you remember my yesterday's session, if you compare series and parallel regenerative braking, which was actually more efficient in terms of yes,
series.
Yes, the series regenerative braking, right? So that's why we see that a similar model is applied here, and let's understand that in deeper right now. So once we open the whole vehicle powertrain control module, we have the accelerator pedal to traction wheel torque request. We are converting the accelerator pedal position sensor input into. So basically, when the driver is pressing an accelerator, what does he mean? He means he requests some torque, right? He requests some torque from the motor, right? We are just converting the accelerator pedal position sensor input into torque command requested by the driver. And for that, we need to have the motor speed input also to calculate this. So once I open this, you can very clearly see that. So once you open this, you can see that accelerator pedal position coming in, input coming inside, and motor speed position. So motor speed position, that is using the sensor. That sensor is providing the value in radians value. So we need to convert that into RPM. And now here we have a 1D lookup table. So if you remember the previous MATLAB method, that is a different approach. And here, this is the lookup table approach. Here, what they do, we can insert a lookup table here. How to insert a lookup table? Just see, look at this. Just click edit table option. Just plot the data. We need to plot the data. For example, for 0 RPM, what is the torque? For 1000 RPM, what is the torque? 2000 RPM, what is the torque? 4000, 3000 RPM, what is the torque value? 4000 RPM, what is the torque value? Just we need to insert this torque value of the motor versus speed of the motor. So once you plot this, you will be able to generate this 1D lookup table, right? So how to insert this lookup table? Just go to the MATLAB window, just go to the Simulink library browser, right? Just go to the library browser of the Simulink. just go to the library browser and just look at the source, bring the inside that means overall source. You can see, just go to the Simulink window and just type lookup table. Once you click on lookup table, you will see 1D lookup table, right? 1D lookup table. So just click, drag and drop the lookup table inside the system, and we will be able to plot. You can insert the motor torque. Just click on the edit table value and just, so if you want to change the value, just change the value 1500 RPM in, just change the 1500 RPM. Just we need to make changes here and just click on OK. Just you will be able to. We'll be able to implement the motor torque versus speed characteristic here. So basically this data will be provided by the manufacturer. If you are purchasing the motor from a manufacturer, basically when you're purchasing itself, this data will be available. Just we need to insert the data here, and based upon the accelerator pedal position input and the motor, using this data plot, using this lookup table, the system will calculate the torque command required. So it will just compare the speed of the system, and with the torque command, it will just replicate the torque command value outside. And that torque command value is coming, torque command request. The torque command request from the driver is actually given as the input here, right? And that is the output from this particular subsystem. And similarly, the battery, when you click on the battery management system, there also they have used the lookup table approach. What lookup table approach? What they have done is, if we are charging the battery, what will be the variation of the charge limit? For example, 0%, 10%, 20%. So what will be the variation of the voltage, overall percentage? So if the 0, 1, 10, 20, 30, 40, so these are all the left side values. And similarly, the discharge limit. So discharge limit, that is like 70% discharge when the battery is showing 20%. Right, this is like 70%. It is already discharged condition. So similarly, when it is going for like in the other case 10%, it is 35% discharge possible. So likewise, we are creating the limit, the charging limit and discharging limit. So where it is useful, charging limit, it will be useful when we are deciding the regenerative braking torque. Correct?
Yes.
And discharging limit, it will be useful when we are actually running the vehicle in the positive direction. So if the discharge limit is already too much, they have already crossed the limit of 20%, then as per this lookup table, the vehicle will not be able to perform more than 35% of its power, right? So we can make the modification. We can change that value from 35% to even we can make the changes to 20% or 40%. So we can optimize that value here. So by using this discharge limit and charging limit combination, so they are easily finding the overall input, because this input is very much required for the final controller to decide battery power discharge limit, battery power charge limit. So all these values are important. And finally, the regenerative braking similarly. So the regenerative braking model, once you open the model, you'll be able to it's a very simple model. Just here also they are using the lookup table approach only. So charge limit, it is comparing the charge limit with the regenerative braking cutoff, and they are comparing these two values and they calculate the regeneration factor. And here you can see the maximum motor torque versus speed character. So from there, they are actually taking the maximum motor torque value, and they are bringing that value here. And this is the brake power request, from the system. So from where they are getting this request? So it is actually coming from the battery SOC, and the battery SOC, it is actually it is the input for the system here. And the same battery SOC is taken as the input into this regenerative braking. Vehicle speed is one more input, motor speed is one more input, and brake pressure request is also one more input. The brake pressure request is nothing but it is decided based upon the deceleration. That means the brake pedal position sensor input. So the brake pedal position sensor comes inside, it is coming inside, and based on the amount of brake pressure pressed, they decide using this switching operation, using this switch operation, they decide whether whether it is in a parking condition, whether the vehicle is in a parking condition, or the deceleration pedal is pressed. According to that, the maximum pressure from the system can be developed, and that is given as the input for the regenerative braking control. And finally, they calculate the motor torque command regeneration. What is the motor torque command regeneration at the output value as the output value, and that is what the input to the final motor arbitration. So here is where the final output is coming. The final torque command from the motor is coming. So you can see once you open this power control, power management, very simple. If we understand it in a very deeper way, it is very simple. Just see, they are taking the motor torque command, motor speed command. It is coming into the subsystem, and once you open this, just they are converting the motor speed from radians to RPM and bringing that into the lookup table. So here what they're doing is, I think everyone know, efficiency of the motor, efficiency of the system is nothing but the mechanical. So if you talk about the efficiency of a motor, it is nothing but, how can we calculate it? So it is the power, it is the power consumption by the mechanical power divided by the electrical power, right? So it is the relationship between the electrical power and the mechanical power. So here in this particular model, we will be able to calculate what is the mechanical power. Mechanical power requested, which is already there, because if you know the torque value, right? If you know the torque value, obviously once we multiply that with the angular speed rotation of the motor, P is equal to T omega. Power is equal to torque into omega, right? So we can calculate the power value of the motor, and once we know the mechanical power, so using the efficiency formula, we can calculate the electrical power requested by the motor. So electrical power requested is equal to mechanical power requested multiplied by electrical efficiency of this particular system. From here we can calculate the electrical power request. So if we know the electrical power requested in terms of kilowatt, right, and if we know the P value, so if we know the P value and we know the voltage of this operation, V value, obviously we can calculate the what value instead. So if we have the P value, P is equal to V into I. So if we have the power value and if we know the voltage, then obviously we can calculate the current requirement. So that is what the input. So finally the current is what decided in the system, and that is actually given as the that means the overall system calculates the mechanical power to torque, and it is actually given here the torque command. And finally the motor maximum torque, that is being decided using the torque requirement value. So you can see the plot there. So the conditions are, in this case, this particular case, the power management algorithm that they have developed is estimate the electrical power based upon the mechanical power using the efficiency map. Check if the electrical power is within the battery power limit. If the power within the battery power limit, use the motor torque command. If the power is not within the limit, if it is exceeding the limit provided by the system, then use the limited motor torque. So they have provided two motor torque. That's what I told. Many people ask me this question, Prashant, when the charge is very low, 20% is there, how the vehicle will behave? Obviously, the vehicle will enter into a limited motor torque command. So the limited motor torque command will be applied for the motor on the drive system. So the motor will operate in that mode unless the charge is more available in the battery. So this is a small simple algorithm. Similarly, we can create algorithm for different vehicle functions, vehicle operations, and vehicle subsystems. So finally, we have the motor torque command coming out of the system, powertrain control module, and that is coming into the vehicle model. So this is the vehicle model. We call it as the plant model and the drivetrain model. So if you open the plant model, we have the motor and the battery. So once you open the motor, we have the basically this is a mapped motor model. So if you don't have a motor, if you don't have a motor model with you, we can use this motor generation EV mapped model. This is basically a lookup table only, similar to a lookup table only. They have created this model. Just we need to define certain parameters. We need to provide the inputs for this model: battery volt, motor speed, torque command. Once you provide this, this will calculate what is the battery current required. What is the battery current required, which is nothing but the motor current, correct? So this is here is where the model calculates what is the current required for the motor for a certain torque requirement. Is it clear? So from here it goes into the final drive system. So we have the final drive system here. You can see the final drivetrain. Here is where we calculate the what we calculate is the total resistance, all these things. Let me open this subsystem. See, we calculate the gradient resistance, aerodynamic resistance, and the front wheel rolling resistance, rear wheel rolling resistance. All these things are calculated here, and finally the values, the acceleration velocity of the system is being calculated. So what are the parameters needed for this? All these parameters are specified here. So in order to do this, in order to use this particular subsystem model created in MATLAB, we need to provide all these parameters. The number of wheels, number of the total mass of the vehicle, CG height, drag coefficient, frontal area, right? And what is the aerodynamic parameters, and what is the suspension parameter? All these things, if we provide all these parameters more and more accurately, obviously the output, the overall output of the model will be more accurate, right? It all depends upon the accuracy of the parameters that we are going to give, right? In default, it will take some parameters. If we want to modify that, we can definitely do that. The flexibility is there in this kind of models, right? So the differential model, drive shaft model, right? So all these models are available in the system. So just we can use these models and we can do that, or even we can definitely create models. That is also possible. So if we know the background physical equation, basically we can create this models in depth, each and every system. But definitely it will take a lot of time to completely develop a whole model like this by a single person. It will definitely take a lot of time. It might take even 1 year of time to complete a complete vehicle model, right? So in companies, they have different teams, motor modeling team, drivetrain model team. See, actually, I worked in the vehicle dynamic modeling team, the drivetrain modeling team actually. So likewise, depending upon the requirement, there will be like you might be, depending upon the knowledge you have. As if you are a student, then if you have a knowledge in motor model development, if you are good at motor physical equations, then you will be given opportunity on the motor plant modeling team, right? So there will be like hundreds of people working in different modeling team, and finally there will be an integration team where all the models will be integrated and brought into a complete vehicle model. So that's how the companies actually work in the model based environment, right? I hope this has given some amount of understanding on the whole vehicle level, and let us look at some visualization as well. Finally, as a final touch, so we can visualize the data, its performance. So meanwhile, if there are any questions from the model-based environment and the opportunities there, if anything is there, feel free to ask me. Any participants?
Sir, good morning, sir.
Yes, Mr. Satish.
Sir, you discussed with some limited torque condition like that, something.
Yes.
When SOS is less than 20% or like that, no?
Yes.
So how it can meet the torque requirement? Suppose the system is put into that limited torque condition.
No, nothing but, for example, if there is no limitation provided, so if, for example, if the system is actually intended to provide 100 Newton meter torque, it is normal condition, and immediately the system will check, these inputs will check whether the vehicle, check the SOC value, and the SOC value, it is right now in 20%. SOC value is 20%. As per the algorithm, if the SOC value is 20%, the percentage of in the lookup table, we can very clearly see it is mentioned as 0.35. 0.35%. 35 means 35% of the torque available. So if 100 Newton meter is the torque available in the system, so the system will only take 35% of it, which is nothing but 35 Newton meter. So automatically the controller will take that value as the applicable value, even though 100 Newton meter is the requirement. Only the 35 Newton meter torque will be considered because currently the SOC value is lesser. So it is basically the controller will check the lookup table. It just plots. It just look at the lookup table and decides that data. If based on the decision, it just decides that whether to go for based on the lookup table value, it decides that. If we don't have a lookup table value, this is one easy way. Lookup table is one of the easy way to provide the input into a system, right? If we don't have the lookup table, then there are other ways we can actually implement it. Basically, we have to create the whole model, in-depth model for that for the data input we need to create there. So that is one way. So it is basically SOC. It takes the SOC inputs here. In a real time in an electric vehicle, SOC is actually coming from the BMS, right? So that BMS input is actually taken by the controller to decide this condition, whether to go for a limited torque condition or nominal conventional torque condition. Yes. It will affect, sir. Gopi sir is asking, it may affect the acceleration capability of the vehicle. Yes, obviously, sir. Once we say, if we don't have the actual required SOC value, if we expect the same acceleration from the vehicle, definitely it will stress the battery pack. It will degrade the battery performance, battery pack life. So as a good controller, it should not do that, right? So yes, it will definitely affect the acceleration capability of the vehicle if the SOC value is below certain limit.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
And if you look at the, someone is asking the SOC part for her, for them just to open that particular area, the battery, the model part. So this is the discharge value, and once you open the, not this one. So open this electrical power plant. See, here is where the SOC is taken care. So we have there's the separate plant model called lithium-ion battery pack model. So these are the two inputs. It needs the battery current requirement, battery temperature, sensor input. So once these two inputs are available, it will be able to calculate what is the battery voltage and battery SOC value basically from here. So just click on this help button. We can see the the background of this particular model very clearly. So I think if you have MATLAB with you, kindly please open this script, this window. It is actually inside the energy storage and auxiliary drive system on the powertrain block set. So this is basically a model developed using the parameter of a real-time battery. Real-time battery. So the background. So this is the background script of this particular battery system, battery model they have developed, and we can even optimize it. We can create changes on this particular system, the complete script here. So kindly to understand the whole SOC generation, you can just visit the script value script if you have the MATLAB with you. So just open the script. You will be able to understand. So now basically how to create this kind of data. You have to just create. You have to just get the data from the battery manufacturer. So you have to get the data like voltage versus discharge capacity data from the battery manufacturer, and just import the data in terms of .mat file. Just import the data here, and using the data you can create the overall it's a normalize the SOC data also. Finally you can see the voltage versus SOC data can be plotted using this, and this is a script big background behind this. Right. So I would recommend the only way is the way you can get this data is basically to reach the manufacturer, and this is a step-by-step approach to develop such a block. Import the battery data sheet, the battery data sheet provided by the battery manufacturer, and get the SOC data from the battery manufacturer, and you can fit the curve using the fit curves option in the MATLAB window, and develop a SOC plot, the current plot, voltage plot in the system. And finally you can validate also. Even you will be able to validate this whole operation. If any specific faculty need this help, reach me personally. I would definitely able to support you in this area, because it's a very preliminary level discussion which we are having today. So once we move in depth, people will not be able to understand it, but still this is like, here is where they build this model, the battery model. So they have a model which is already available in the system, based on which they calculate the SOC value. So any more questions? Any more questions from the participant? See, there is a very huge scope for model-based simulation, model-based system design. So if there are any faculties or research scholars, I would strongly recommend you people to enhance the skill in this particular area. So definitely it will be useful. Either you are a mechanical engineer or a mechatronics engineer or electrical engineer. This is definitely an area where a good amount of scope is there, and even in the international market as well. So I would strongly recommend the participants to work in this area. So if there are any more questions, kindly put it in the chat box, or else we can join back by 11:30. Maybe over to you, ma'am, Aparna ma'am or Prasita ma'am.
Okay, sir. Any more questions?
Okay, then we'll go for a short break until 11:30. Please join at 11:30.
So the last session will be about testing and certification. I think it will be a new topic for all the participants. So kindly please join in the last session and make it really successful. Thank you.